Hey everyone, are you ready to be fired up? Because I sure am. I have got Alex Mayer with me here from Rochester, Minnesota, and he is going to be talking in his chapter all about how to get your time back. You know, things that we're taught to do, cold call and door knock. Well, that used to be Alex and not anymore. So remember, if you'd like to learn more about Alex's chapter, go to KristaMashore.com/secrets, KristaMashore.com/secrets to get the full book on all the top producers. Alex, thank you for being here.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, so tell us a little bit of your story. You live in Rochester, Minnesota. Kind of tell how long you've been in real estate. Bring us along to where you're at, what you're doing now, and the evolution of Alex Mayer.
Yeah, so there's an old joke in real estate about how I quit my 9-to-5 job so that I could work part-time and not have to work all the time. When ultimately, when you get into real estate, you end up working for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it could just end up running people's life. And my chapter of the book is about taking your life back and taking back control of your time as a real estate agent and a business.
I love that. So when you first, how long have you been in real estate?
So I got into real estate in 2016.
Okay.
I was lucky I got recruited into real estate by the top real estate broker in my city. Mm-hmm. And I felt very blessed because I had the opportunity to work with 7 other really great agents, all doing between 30 and 40 transactions a year. It was an amazing experience because, in my opinion, you have to learn from people who are at your level, above your level, and people who are approaching your level. So we're always able to learn from people who are teaching us from above, people who are doing the exact same thing we are, and how they're implementing things differently. And then the people who are newer to the business and experiencing things in a new way because they have a fresh eye that we just don't have.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for a long time. It's actually interesting to me to think back that I've been licensed for almost 8 years now, because now I'm technically considered a senior agent at this point. But I still like to think that I'm a young buck in this industry. And it was a good experience for me because that was a team that taught me how to develop a routine, and it taught me how to have conversations with people over the phone. One thing that I know you love about this is I used to make phone calls about 2 hours a day. That was where I got the vast majority of my business, is I was calling people from 9 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock in the morning, working to set appointments. Now, if you've ever done phone prospecting, I've ever done phone prospecting, or if anyone listening to this has, it is a very rejection-heavy business. There's a lot.
What's the percentage? I'm sure you know because you spent years cold calling. What's the percentage? I mean, how many phone calls do you need to make to even get someone to answer? Like for every 100 calls, what's the average people that answers, and then what's the average that converts? Kind of talk me through that.
So, interestingly enough, because of your program, it hasn't been necessary for me to make the phone call so much anymore. But back in the day, I would say it was between 2 and 4% of people would answer the phone. Of those people, you'd be lucky to get probably 10% of them to actually be willing to set an appointment. The goal every single week when I was on this team was to get 2 appointments a week. I still hold that quota today. Of course, I don't have to go on the phones anymore to do that because I have an attraction-based marketing plan. Thank you to you. But that was an interesting start to the career because it taught me how to do business quickly. I got to learn from a lot of other people who were doing business regularly, and it made me an ultimately better agent. And
it's that good. Like, I mean, as much as I've never been able to cold call, never have I wanted to, but it really set you up. Like, this is your structure. You were structured. You were routined. You were disciplined. Right. And so that was the one good thing about it, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And it worked. I mean, it did work, but it was hard and grueling.
It was hard. It was grueling. And it was one of those things that if you stopped making the phone calls, it was going to affect your paycheck in the next 90 days. And I decided around 2018 to hire into your coaching program because I had realized that I was working 50, 60 hours a week. Yeah. And it was a grind. I was doing really well. I was closing a lot of business, but I did not have any time off. I ultimately ended up hiring you as a coach back in January of 2019. And I knew the moment that I hired into your coaching program that it was going to be big. I remember walking my dog around the city at that time and being like, this is going to be like I'm the first man on the moon. Because there's nobody in my market who was doing digital marketing the way that you were. I actually found you through reading your book, Sell 100 Plus Homes a Year. And you started showing up on my Facebook feed like every other day for like 2 months until I was finally like, all right, how do I do what she does?
Yeah.
And it was great because, you know, you having a master's degree in curriculum instruction made it so you had to design this whole program in a way that made it easy to understand and easy to implement. You just had to do the work and watch the videos and pay attention. And by doing that, within even 4 weeks of just running the video ads, my referrals had quadrupled in that amount of time. I was already doing a significant amount of business at the time. So even while I was in those probably first 4 to 5 months of hiring you, I was probably still working 50 to 60 hours a week at that time.
Yeah.
But I was working the phones and I was implementing your system at the same time. And it was something that I had to invest both the money, the time, and energy into making it work. But within probably 5 to 6 months of doing that, I was working 30 hours a week. I no longer had to be on the phones every single day. Deals would just fall into my lap. People would reach out to me. And I always tell people, the beautiful thing about the program is every so often you're just going to have 1 or 2 random people reach out to you that you've never had a conversation with, but they're going to act like they know you. And they're going to ask you to be their real estate agent. And when I talk to people who are interested in joining the program, I ask them, what would it be like if you had 1 or 2 extra deals a month? What would that mean for your income? Because it's substantial for most people to have that opportunity to work with people. And these are people who want to work with you. They are your client avatar. You've built that into your coaching. So we're actually speaking to the people that we are trying to attract to our business. So not only am I getting clients in an easy way, but they are easygoing.
You're attracting people that are like you as well. I mean, so kind of talk about that. Do people feel like they know you? Or like, explain that. Explain what it's like when you're out about the city. What's it like when you go meet somebody? Yeah,
so that actually happened pretty quickly with them starting running the ads.
But you've been very consistent. You're very consistent with the video, very consistent running ads. Mm-hmm. You have been very consistent. Early on, you implemented. You very much took it very serious.
Yep, I believe when you pay attention. And I paid a lot of money to hire you, and I was like, I'm going to do what this person tells me.
Yes, exactly.
So I jumped into it right away. But yeah. If there's only one thing that someone should be doing within the program is they should be running 2 video ads a week. And that means actually putting money behind the videos that you're recording. There are agents in my market that I see will come out. They will record 1 video every quarter. Mm-hmm. And it's super clean. It's super nice. And it gets a lot of likes from people on their personal page. But if they're not doing it consistently over time where they actually get to know the real you, it's not going to work.
Yeah. It's nice.
Yes. But out in the community, to answer your question, there's probably not a day that goes by where I can go to the gym, to a restaurant, anywhere without someone being like, hey, are you that real estate guy?
Yeah.
And you get used to it, but it's interesting the first few times it happens. Like the first few weeks, people are like looking at you and they like double take and it's like, yeah, what's that? And, I mean, it still happens today. Like,
I know. Yeah.
And then there's the people that will come up to you and just start talking to you about real estate like they know you. And it's because we've developed that parasocial relationship that you talk about all the time, is they feel like they do know you. And it's kind of awkward because you're like,
it is uncomfortable. It's like, people are like, is this really you? You're like, yeah, is this really you?
Are you going to tell me your name? I don't really know how to really.
Yeah.
But, and it's amazing too, is because you are always passively prospecting on the back end of this. Mm-hmm. I'll have people
explain that. That's a very good point to make, that you're, creating the video content, getting the videos out there so they're actually being seen, getting mass exposure of your content locally, your passive prospecting. Explain deeper.
Yes. So when I first started running the ads and noticing that like 1 video ad with like $40 of ad spend behind it would get like 20 to 30 hours of video watch time on like a 30 to 60 second video, I was like, I can't be on the phones for 20 hours in a week.
No.
I'm like, and this is a video that is very well done. It's concise. It's to the point. It's presenting information in the best light. And I know that if I do that consistently, over 8 weeks, if I do 2 videos a week, that's 16 touches, 16 different videos that people are seeing. They're seeing me talk about a different subject every single time. I'm educating my marketplace. They are developing this understanding that I know that I'm the authority in Rochester real estate, and that is making it so that parasocial relationship becomes even more evident. But you're passively prospecting. I would have people that would reach out to me because they met me one time 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Or just random people are like, hey, no, I see you at the gym all the time. Even when I was making the phone calls, because I like 5-figure checks, so every now and then I will jump on the phone.
Yes.
And I will get a deal from it. I'll talk to someone and I'll be like, hey, I think I know you, or I recognize your voice. Or like, oh no, you're the guy that shows up on my Facebook feed all the time. And that's a very common experience for not just me, but for a lot of your students, your program who are implementing.
Yeah. And doesn't it make, as far as the closing of the deals, and can you explain a little bit about that? You know, when you show up to an appointment, what's different now? Could you explain this very, very well? I think it's a very important that, you know, how now it's a different type of an interaction with the seller or buyer.
Seller or buyer, it doesn't matter. When they just, I'll have people who will call me or message me and be like, hey, will you be my real estate agent? When I was on the phones calling people, I had to sell myself to them and prove that I knew what I was talking about. But when people are seeing your videos constantly, or they're going to your About page and they're seeing the website and how we've designed things that way, they are reaching out and they're like, I would like you to be my real estate agent. And that is a very common experience.
Yes.
Especially today, like I travel a lot.
Yeah, he travels a lot. Like he works, you know, not very, like couple hours a day, takes, you know, what 3 months vacation a year?
Last year I took 14 weeks where I was away from the markets, right? So I don't necessarily turn it off, because one of my, I feel successful win is when I am in fact negotiating a deal, when I'm on a mountain, on a hike, when I'm on the beach, doesn't matter. I enjoy that. That is fun for me. But I don't actually have to be at my marketplace to do those things. And people are happy to wait for me to get back. In fact, when I get back after this weekend, I'm going to have 2 listing appointments I'm going to be going on Tuesday and Wednesday. And these are just people who are ready for me to get home and to work with them. So it's amazing in that they trust you right away. They know that you know your stuff, and they see you regularly. And I have this conversation with people who are like, well, my friend's a real estate agent. Well, first off, most of my friends are real estate. But are you working with your friend because they're your friend, or because they can get you the best deal, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't work with your friend. What I'm saying is, do you know that they know what they are doing, and can they help you get a good deal? Because my friends work with me because I know what I'm doing. But you know, sometimes people will mention, like, you know, my buddy's a real estate agent, but I see your videos every day.
Yeah.
So
all over.
And it's just
educating, adding value, and they just feel like they know you. So when you're, you know, go to meet with them, it's like, hey, you know, like they're hugging you and you know, putting your favorite jellyfishes on the counter, or giving you Diet Coke because then you like Diet Coke.
Yeah, like for me, for example, a lot of people know about my dogs. And
you've done an amazing job branding yourself. I will tell you, with your dogs. I mean, everyone knows it. And your car now, we've got to make sure we get a picture in the comments of Alex's dogs and his car that he's beautifully branded. You have absolutely taken your branding to the next level. I mean, it's been very impressive to watch.
Yep, I call it a land, air, and sea approach to marketing. And I say the air part of that, having aerial superiority, comes from the digital marketing that you have taught us. And even the C, with the C part of that is having those like things that you can drop off. That's the CMA boxes.
Yes.
That is, you know, I have coasters I drop off at bars that have my picture and the dogs on there with QR codes. And I have 10,000 of those in my marketplace right now. My business cards have the dogs on them. My car has the dogs on them as well. I have 2 vehicles, by the way. I don't show up to a listing appointment in my branded car, as I don't want the neighbor who's a real estate agent to know that I'm going to...
Oh, so you don't do that, huh?
Yeah, but... so the dogs are on the hybrid, and they're on the for sale signs. Everyone knows me for those things. So that's my C approach. And land is...
Did you have like a petting, like a come meet the dog day or something?
I have that pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like if there's a neighborhood that I really want to target, I'm going to walk or run my dogs there.
Yeah.
Exercises. I want people who will send me messages of me running or walking my dogs, or, hey, I see your dogs. Like it's all, that's my land approach. Is I'm actually in the community. There's an event in Rochester called Thursdays on First. Every Thursday during the summer months, people are down there visiting. I bring the dogs down there. There are other local events like Rochester Fest, Olmsted County Fair, other things that are going on where I can bring the dogs around. I also, you can't hear this on the podcast, but on my laptop, I have my branding on it, because I used to have an office for 2.5 years, and I realized that was an unnecessary expense. Now I will go into restaurants, bars, coffee shops, any random place. I will set up shop. I will work there, and I will have my car outside so people know when they walk in that, hey,
smart.
Alex is probably here. And then they'll see me on my laptop doing work. And I've
bring that
a lot
conversations.
It's an easy way to start conversations with people about real estate. That's my land approach.
But I have to explain something, which is, and like he's done a good job explaining this, but if there's people are seeing Alex, and they're seeing you, they're seeing their dogs all over their news feeds because of the digital marketing, retargeting strategies that we teach, you know, through Facebook and other social media sites. And now it's like when they see you, it's different. It'd be one thing if you were just this guy that was around, but because you're actually getting such, hundreds and hundreds of hours of exposure, it's like it's just this massive,
And the interesting thing is my strategy with the attraction-based marketing strategy is not necessarily to get a lead. It is for someone to consistently see me show up on the videos, to see me out in the marketplace, and then when they actually meet me, find out that I'm not a pretentious real estate. I'm very easygoing. I like to explain things in an easy to understand way. And I like to have fun. And when they see that you're a human being, the dogs, you crack jokes. I like to think of myself as a charmer. I don't really like to be overly pretentious about what's going on in the contracts. I like to just say, here's kind of the short and skinny of it. I can go into more detail on this. I'm a servant at heart. We've always been trained, serve, not sell. I believe that the most important thing you can do for your business is to make sure your clients have a good experience. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be problems in a transaction. Setting expectations and boundaries is everything with your clients. But when you already have built months or years of a parasocial relationship with them, and then they meet you and you are like, hey, I have to have a tough conversation with you. Like when I meet with buyers in today's market, I'm like, hey, the situation is not looking good for you right now. You are likely to be competing with other buyers more than you are competing with the seller. Here's a bunch of bad news. Now sign here with me as your agent, right? That is not it. A lot of agents will just go into it. They'll get a signature. They won't explain what's going on. They make it seem like it's going to be rainbows and butterflies. It's not. I can tell them up front, this is going to be difficult, but we can get through it because here's the playing field, and this is what you can expect.
So this is totally going on a different site here. I haven't talked to anybody else about this, but with the whole new buyer broker compensation, and the buyers now ultimately are going, starting August 17th, unless something changes, going to have to be signing something before you can go show them a house or email a house to them, that ultimately the commission is the responsibility of the buyer. Now, again, does not mean that the seller cannot pay the commission. You can still negotiate it off of the MLS. Again, from the time this podcast is, launches, things could be changing. But what is your conversation going to be like? Because I know you're good on the phone. So can you kind of walk through what that conversation is going to look like? Well, Alex, I just want to go directly to the listing agent.
So I always try to approach this from, both the buy side and the sell side. So when I'm talking to buyers, I want them to understand not just their current situation. I want them to see the bird's eye view of it. I want them to understand what the seller's also thinking about in the transaction. When I meet with sellers, I want them to think about what the buyers are thinking about in the transaction, right? So in my state, Minnesota, you have to have a licensed contract for representation. It's been that way since 1993 in my state. I have had a written contract with every client that I have ever represented. I charge slightly higher than what is common for most agents when I represent a buyer and when I represent a seller. And even when I'm competing, I had a listing about 3-4 months ago. There were 5 agents competing. I was the highest priced agent, and they still ended up hiring with me. And they wrote me a rating review, and they love me. And they love the dogs, and they ask for cards all the time about them, of course. But when I meet with sellers right now, the conversation is, yes, here's what my fee is. What I want you to understand, it is likely that the buyer who is going to be bringing us an offer is going to have a contract with the buyer's agent for a set amount. It is likely in our purchase agreement, and this is the way it's going to be in my state anyways, they're changing the contracts on August 17th so that there's a section right after seller's concessions that says, seller to pay buyer's broker X amount of the percentage.
We've already have that. So right now ours is like, it's been that way. Here's the full commission. And again, we're not going to mention any numbers at all in this podcast, but it's like, hey, here's the total commission. Here's what I'm going to be paying towards the buyer's fee.
Yep. So the way that it is currently is ultimately the listing brokerage pays the buyer broker the fee. That's the way that it is today. And that's changing August 17th. Personally, as someone who's represented a lot of buyers in my career, I don't think that the listing agent or the seller should ever have had the opportunity to determine what I get paid as a buyer's agent. That's between me and my buyer. I charge slightly higher commission, and I charge a broker admin fee as a buyer's agent. And when I have a situation currently, the way the market is, where the listing agent or seller is offering less than what my agreement is with the buyer, I will I'll give the buyer 3 options. Number 1, you can ask the seller to pay the difference in the purchase agreement. That is an option. Option number 2, you can ask for seller's concessions for that difference, and then you're just going to be responsible for it closing. It's the same amount of money in the end anyways. It's just working out the difference. Option number 3 is you can pay that yourself. There's only been one time in my career, and I've represented hundreds of buyers, where I have not been paid my full commission, and it was my fault because I forgot it was a VA loan. My buyer could not pay me the difference. What I expect to happen in the future is when I meet with a seller, I'm going to be like, okay, my fee is X. There's a good chance that we are going to have to pay a buyer's agent when they bring a buyer. Understand.
Well, Alex, I don't want to have to pay that. I read all this, this stuff online saying that you don't no longer have to pay the buyer's commission.
Well, you got to understand, like, the way that it was set up before is people were charging X percent, right? Today, they're charging X percent minus Y. What you need to expect as a seller, if you want to sell your house, is that the buyer is going to have a buyer's agent representing them. Understand, the only person bringing money to the closing table is the buyer, right? You might be thinking, you have to understand, where is the money actually coming from in the end? If the buyer brings you an offer and they state that their agent is getting paid Z percent or a flat fee, whatever it is, understand that they're making that offer. The only thing that you should be caring about, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is what your net proceeds are. That's the only thing that you should be worried about. The rest of it's all just noise. When I'm representing sellers, I just have the conversation with them up front about, here's what some examples are of what those fees are. We won't know. Likely what's going to happen is, if let's say we get multiple offers, we're going to have offer A is going to be asking for X percent. Offer B is going to be asking for Y percent. Offer C is going to be asking for $8,000 to represent their buyer as part of the commission. You will ultimately be able to decide what that is. But here are some estimates of what those numbers would be based off of what we can expect. As of right now, we don't know what the future is going to hold. We don't have.
And let's not limit anyone. Like, let's not limit anyone, right? Let's let it be negotiable. So when a buyer says, "Well, Alex, I'm going to go. I don't want to have to pay your commission. I don't want to sign this. I'm going to go directly to the listing agent." What would your response be?
That's an option, but understand that there are risks involved in that. In real estate, the number one most common lawsuit is private sales. Number two most common lawsuit in real estate is dual agency. And you got to understand that if you're going to be working with the seller or the listing agent representing or assisting the seller, they don't represent you. They're not looking out for your best interest in that situation. Also, I work with a lot of sellers. I would and I have this conversation with sellers today, the way that the market is and the way the commissions are structured, I would much rather represent one side in any transaction. This is a personal preference of mine. Not everyone's going to agree with this. But if I have an unrepresented buyer call me off of my listing, first thing I'm going to do is ask them, do you have an agent already? Because there have been times where I've had someone be like, oh, my agent's not available. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, call your agent.
I'm not available either. But option number two is, hey, I represent the seller. Understand that I'm looking out for the seller's interest. I can make some referrals to a few other agents who can represent you on that side, right? Now, is that possibly going to change? Yes, we don't know. Again, I have a tattoo of a crystal ball on my forearm. Hasn't been working since I got it.
Yes.
Right? So I don't know what the future is going to hold yet. There might be a few things that change over the course of it. But ultimately, it's just about being more transparent in a situation where we don't necessarily know where all the chips are going to fall on this at this point. It's
going to change a lot. I do believe that. Alex, this has been amazing. Okay, so I love the fact that you have changed your business. You've become a branding machine. You no longer need to cold call and all that kind of stuff. Your attraction-based marketing is marketing for you. People feel like they know you, know, like, and trust. And research shows that in times of more uncertain markets, like we're in now, the trust factor is significantly increases, right? So you're meeting with people and it's just easier. But I want to make sure that everyone knows exactly, again, go to KristaMashore.com/secret. You can read all of Alex's chapter, where he really goes into this in much more detail, how he utilizes digital marketing, social media, retargeting to dominate his local market in non-traditional ways that are actually giving him a lot more time in buying his life back. Where can people find you? Go and let us know that. And then I always end it with one piece of advice you would give.
So where you can find me? Facebook, I'm easy to get a hold of. Alex Mayor's my name. Alex like the great, Mayor like Mayor of a town. Use that as mnemonics, right? If there was one, I'm going to give two. Okay. I am a cheat. So number one is immerse yourself in the community of the people that are involved. Probably the biggest latent effect that what you've done is that you've brought a lot of like-minded real estate agents together who are all lifelong learners. They're willing to pull back the curtains on everything that's working, and they're going to share that. And if you can immerse yourself in that community, everyone's going to be building each other up together. We are all collaborating. Number two is run at least 2 video ads a week. Put money behind them, because that is what is going to differentiate you in the marketplace if you do consistently.
That's the goal. Everyone, I hope that you are just as fired up as I am with Alex Mayer. Reach out to him. He has great content online. Alex, I appreciate you so much. And everyone, remember, KristaMashore.com/secrets. You can see all of Alex's chapter, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for watching my video. You can learn more about how to be a successful real estate professional by watching other videos that I have. And be sure to subscribe to my channel. And as always, make it a great home selling and buying day.